Hi, I'm Jonathan Weinberg, and this is Drawing with Fountain Pens. Today I'm going to talk about yet another fountain pen from Asvine, another Chinese fountain pen. In a way, what makes this pen so different or remarkable is something that isn't so remarkable, which is that it is, I think, one of the first Chinese pens that uses a Jowo Nib. It's a little more expensive than typical Chinese pens. On Amazon, it's around $60, but this is a titanium pen. The whole pen is, or at least the outside of the pen is all titanium. It's quite a heavy pen. It's quite substantial. And now it uses Jowo nibs. So one of the reasons that sometimes people feel that Chinese pens are not quite as good as a lot of pens that you can get on the market is the nib, but now you can put a Jowo nib. Now, Asvine had been using, there were some of its pens that you could put a Bach nib on it, but the Jowo nibs are a bit more popular and a bit less expensive. And once you can put a Jowo nib on the pen, that opens up the possibility of changing nibs and getting a stub. Chinese pens tend to only come in fine and extra fine and sometime medium, but Jowo nibs, of course, come as stubs and broad. And of course, you could even, if you wanted to, I suppose, switch this nib out for a 14 karat Jowo nib if you wanted to go out and buy a more expensive nib and switch it. So that is, I suppose, a interesting thing, a good thing on one hand. On the other hand, I would say, though, that Asvine's own nibs are pretty good, and I would prefer if they were making broad nibs or stub nibs for their pens, because I think they would be more affordable, and it would be another option out there. And I bet at some point they will start doing that. So I'll go through the different aspects of this pen, what it looks like it seems like almost all Chinese pens, they have a model. In this case, it looks very much like a Mont Blanc pen in its shape and form, but not in its material. And I will write with it and do a drawing with it. As always, if you find that this is helpful, please subscribe. That's the way to support the channel. It doesn't cost anything, and it makes me happy. Thanks. So here's the Asvine J16. I assume the J stands for Jowo. It comes in, the titanium version comes in two modes. This is the shinier version. There's a brushed version of it as well. I thought somehow I liked this better. I thought it was more interesting. The pen looks very much like another Chinese pen. This is the Maijang P136. You can see that it's very similar in shape to the Maijang pen. And Maijang, I don't own it, but it also makes a titanium pen that is very close, seems to be very close to the Asvine. It advertises that you can get a Bach nib, actually a gold Bach nib will fit in their pen, or you can use the Maijang fine and extra fine, and it's a little bit more expensive. The P136, which I think is a really terrific pen, is much less expensive. I don't know, it runs you around 30 and even less now. I think depends on whether you get it on Amazon or eBay or AliExpress. Now, of course, this whole design of this pen looks very much like a Mont Blanc 146, which I don't have a Mont Blanc 146. I do have an old Mont Blanc 149, and you can see how similar the design is. So this is a kind of classic cigar shape or torpedo shaped pen, and you can see particularly in the clip the way that these two pens are emulating the Mont Blanc clip. So That's not that unusual. What I said is unusual here, though, is a Chinese pen that is created to take a Jowo Nib, and it uses a very standard Jowo housing. So you can take this Jowo Nib and screw it in and out of, for example, a Shown Design pen. I just tried that out, and in fact you could take one of Shown Design's amazing nibs that they created that are very, very expensive, and if you wanted to, you could actually put it into this pen. And there are a whole range of these Jowo nibs that tend to run around $22-25. You can get them from various pen companies that sell it, and you can get these in broad and stubs, etc., etc. So that's a very convenient thing. You notice that the often when Jowo is making a nib for a particular company, they customize it for that company. But you notice in this case, at least for now, Asvine has not done any custom work on the nib. You can just, I don't know if you can make it out, but it just says on the side the size. This is a broad. And that in and of itself is exciting, because typically when you buy a Chinese pen, they don't come in broads. So it's nice to be able to order that. It will be interesting to see if at some point they will offer this pen with just standard Asvine nibs. I think the material itself is very handsome. It says Asvine on the side here, on the cap. It is a very heavy pen. So the pen is quite substantial. It's 44.5 grams, just without the cap. It's hard to do this because it rolls. Let's see, it's about 25 grams without the cap. The pen posts very securely. It becomes very big though when you post it. And you can see again, it's 44.5 grams. Just to give you a comparison, a Lamy Safari, which is a plastic pen, is going to be 16, almost 17 grams. So this is quite a heavy pen. The pen is 5 3/4 inches. It's pretty long, and when you post it, it posts very securely, but not so deeply. It becomes really big. So it becomes over 6.5, almost 6 3/4 inches when you post it. That's pretty big. And it may be the kind of pen that you don't want to post because it's so heavy. Just as a point of comparison, Lamy Safari is not, which is pretty big pen, long pen. When it's posted is not quite as long. Here is the Pilot Metropolitan. You can see not nearly as long. And when it's posted, you can see, wow, much shorter pen. So this is the Maijan P136. And you can see that it's considerably shorter when it's posted. So everybody has different tastes when it comes to, the lengths of the pen, etc., etc. So that's up to you. One thing I'd like to point out is that when you do post the pen, it doesn't easily, at least, turn the piston. And that's very important with a piston pen. There are several pens out there. When you post them, the problem is that you can inadvertently turn the piston knob, and that gets ink all over the place. So if it's a piston pen and you post it, and it's postable, it should be designed in such a way that it doesn't inadvertently do that. Another nice thing about the pen is that if you want to clean it, it's great that you can unscrew the nib and clean it that way. And then it also comes with the pen a little wrench. So if you want to take the pen apart, it is fairly easy. I'm not going to do that, but there are plenty of places where they do that, and you use that little wrench. You can unscrew it and take the whole pen apart if you want to clean it. And it's good that they include the wrench in the box. Here is the box, typical Asvine box, and you open it up, and this is typical clear box that the pen comes in. Here you can see the wrench and the instructions, and the pen would be like this. It comes in a little plastic wrap, very simple, nicely done. Another nice feature of the pen, I think, is the ink window. So I think that's a very nice design. The titanium, it's very handsome, and the ink window, I think, is a really good idea. So you know how much ink is it in the pen, and there's a piston filler. It's great that they give you the wrench to take the pen apart and clean it, because with a piston filler, that is one of the disadvantages of a piston pen, is that it's much harder to clean than a pen that has a converter in it or a cartridge in it, because this interior part of the pen is not as accessible. But because you can unscrew the nib out, so that's usually the fastest way to clean it. And if you really want to make a very careful cleaning, you can take the whole pen apart, and that's really good. It's also nice to be able to take the pen apart. If the piston starts acting up a little bit, it can be a little sticky, and you can put a little silicone grease on the piston, and that can help it move more smoothly. Although I didn't find when I out of the box, this seemed to write perfectly and no problems with the piston, so I didn't feel it was necessary to take it apart and do that, but down the road I probably will. So how does it write? Now, I mentioned already that it's quite a heavy pen, so it's up to you whether you would want to post it. It makes it quite heavy, but actually I sort of like it posted. I like pens posted in general. This is the Asvine J16. The J, I assume, stands for Jowo. It is a broad nib. This is a new ink for me, the Sailor Kiwaguro, which is a black, very black ink. This is rhodia paper. And it's very smooth, exactly what you expect from a Jowo nib. Now keep in mind, though, that, for example, Conklin pens use Jowo nibs, and I've had kind of mixed bad. So if you have a Jowo nib, but it's not put in the pen properly, or it's not polished the right way, I mean, it depends, I suppose, on the agreement with the company, the quality, I don't know, but it doesn't always turn out that a Jowo nib is going to write well. But this one at least is very smooth and pleasant. But you'll notice that there is no line variation. I love this very, very black ink. It's going to be perfect when I draw Barty, who is a black cat, and the perfect cat for Halloween. in conclusion, this is certainly a nice pen. I'm a little ambivalent about the Jowo Nib. I mean, I think it writes well. It's nice to have this option, but there are so many pens out there that have similar nibs, and it seems that Asvine is going after a little bit, I think, companies that sell somewhat more expensive pens or similar pens like the Opus 88 that use Jowo nibs. So this is certainly a good value. The titanium is nice. Sort of ironically, one thing that they don't tend to offer on these titanium pens are titanium nibs. You can get, I've reviewed the Karas pen, for example, that has a titanium nib that is made by Bock. That is fairly expensive, that nib. It runs around $60. And I think you can get a titanium nib that is in a Jowo housing, even if it might not be made by Jowo. I think there are people out there who offer such a thing. Because titanium is a really interesting medium for making nibs, and you see pens that say they're titanium pens, but they don't actually have titanium nibs, and that seems wrong somehow. But nevertheless, for the price, I think this is a nice pen, and particularly it's handsome. It's good looking, and it isn't just like a Mont Blanc, because Mont Blanc, as far as I know, does not have a pen that's in this particular material. So I recommend it with some reservations about sort of the future direction of Asvine, and I wouldn't want it to be just yet another pen company that puts Jowo nibs on all of its pens. As always, please do subscribe if you enjoyed this. Happy Halloween.